You know where the real entertainment is, right? Forget all that other stuff. We will talk about traceability in as much as we need to. Just a real quick question, just from a show of hands. Who was in Nashville with us last year at FoodCentric? Okay, so a few of you. There's going to be repeat information in this session, but it's also going to give you an update of where we've gotten since Nashville. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So and there's some new news about the timing of it that I'll share with you. But the intent is for you to understand where PFG is with the new regulation, what our goals are, and how we will assist you as restaurant operators to be compliant to the rule. So just a plug for my quality-centric meeting. We do have a quality-centric meeting. It is a sister meeting to FoodCentric. It is all quality-focused. So we do invite quality professionals from our customers to come join us. We do it here in Orlando. It's in January, but it's a sister meeting to FoodCentric. So my team leads that, and it's all about food safety and quality. So our first, we do it every other year. Our first one was last year. Our next one will be in 2027. So we will skip a year. Food safety material doesn't change super quick. So every 2 years will be the cadence for that meeting. And then I can't do anything without talking about my team. So it is really my team that gets all the work done. Shannon and Christina and Osvaldo are here in the room with me this morning, but we have a team of 14 that are out in the field looking at product quality, looking at food safety at our warehouses, with our customers, with our suppliers. So this is the team that supports everything at PFG that is focused on food safety, food quality, and public health. So just a real quick run through of the agenda. So I'll give a quick overview of the food traceability rule. Not much is new. So this will be a little bit of a rehash from last year. And after that, I'll go through the FDA extension of the rule, which is new. So there's not much new to the rule except the extension, which really is a big deal for industry. And I'll go through that. I'll talk about the traceability projects at PFG. We manage traceability every week, so I'll give you a reminder of how we do that. We will talk about the path forward for compliance in 2025, what we've done, and what we plan to do in 2026. Hopefully with our customers. There's a lot of supplier work that we're still working through, but our goal by the end of 2026 is to really start engaging with customers with the data that's required as a part of this rule. Then we'll do some questions and answers if you have any at the end. So this is material from last year. So this is a redo. So the food traceability rule was enacted in 2022. It was actually a part of the Food Safety Modernization Act that came out in 2011. So there was 11 years between when the Food Safety Modernization Act was enacted and the food traceability rule was actually written. The food traceability rule is subsection 204 under the Food Safety Modernization Act. So you'll hear it referred to as FSMA 204 a good bit. We are noticing that FDA is not referring to it as FSMA 204. They're referring to it as the Food Traceability Rule. That aligns with how they call out other rules under FSMA. So there is the Preventative Controls Rule. It has its own number. It's 111. So they don't refer to preventative controls as FSMA 111. So and there's the Sanitary Food Transportation Act, which has its own number under FSMA. And again, we're just noticing that FDA is not referring to the rule as FSMA 204. They're referring to it as the traceability rule, which is how PFG is referring to it. The gist of the rule is that you have to keep records about certain food products that you are manufacturing or receiving or storing in order to transmit those records and that data to the next folks in the supply chain. So as a manufacturer produces a food, they will generate these key data elements, as they are being called in the rule, that have to be transmitted to the next receiving folks in the supply chain. So at PFG, since we're in the middle, we will receive those key data elements from the food manufacturers in order to store that data and have it ready for you all as food service operators. We will be able to transmit it to you, but we have to receive it from the manufacturers. That's really the key work that's going on right now, is getting the manufacturing community in line so that they are generating the proper KDEs. They are transmitting those KDE data points to their distributors and direct to consumers as necessary. This is only applicable to certain food types. So there is a food traceability list that the FDA put out there. This is all the foods that are on that list. So you see it's cheeses, shell eggs, nut butters, cucumbers. Then we get into produce. So it's cucumbers, herbs, leafy greens, melons, peppers, sprouts, tomatoes, tropical fruits like mango and papaya. Any kind of fruit and vegetable that's processed, if it's chopped or diced or sliced, it's on the food traceability list. Then we get into seafood, the finfish products, your salmon, your tilapia, your swordfish, crustaceans, shrimp and lobster, crab, molluscan bivalves, which are your clams, oysters, and mussels, ready-to-eat deli salads, your potato salads, coleslaw, macaroni salads, and then any foods that contain any of these items that have not gone through a kill step. So these are the foods that are typically associated with foodborne illness outbreaks. That's why they are on the food traceability list. And these are the only items that FDA requires to be compliant with the food traceability rule currently. They have held on to the authority to add to this list at will. They've told industry that they probably won't add to the list, but every five years or so, unless there's a significant foodborne illness outbreak associated with a different type of product, and then of course they'll probably add. But they have retained that authority to add to the list at will. Here are the 8 key data elements that they're requiring for manufacturers to generate, to transmit throughout the supply chain. I'm not going to go through these 8, but you can read the list. The number 1 is the traceability lock code, or TLC, as you'll hear it referred to in acronym form. That will come to PFG from the supplier. We are not generating that traceability lock code. So that's the main key data element that we have to get from manufacturers. Number 2 is the case quantity, how much is being ordered. We will generate that KDE because we're replacing those purchase order numbers. So we will tell the manufacturers we are ordering 1,000 cases of cantaloupe from you. We need you to send us 1,000 cases. But if you go through all of these KDEs, these are the sets of information that FDA considers important to trace back for a foodborne illness outbreak. Again, this whole rule was written to help FDA speed up their investigation of foodborne illness outbreaks. Before I came to PFG, I did spend 15 years working in food service with national brands, and we did have illness outbreak investigations going on. PFG, we do have customers who have illness investigations that go on, and they come to us to engage with us from time to time. So we do understand the need that the regulators have for quick investigation, and they've identified these key data elements as what is important for them. For the trace forward information, if you look at number 8, PFG, our documents are going to be the purchase order number back to the supplier. That's our trace back to the supplier. And then our trace back from the customer is the invoice number. So that's important information for you to know. And at some point, we'll do better training. We'll have training sessions set up with customers so you understand exactly what would need to be involved if you were ever had to participate in a trace back exercise with a regulatory agency. So the food traceability rule overview, so this is really anybody who transforms food. This does not apply to restaurants, but it applies to restaurants because you receive food that has been transformed. So when the manufacturers transform the food and they assign the traceability lot codes, the TLC, you guys are responsible to receive the TLCs through whatever, if it's direct from the manufacturer or from your distributor like PFG. The TLC has to be linked from the point where the food is transformed. So that traceability lot code, they want transparency. So whatever is assigned at the manufacturer, it has to flow through to the distributor and out to the end user so that everybody understands this is what the traceability lot code is. It's required at all points in the supply chain, and it basically explains how you're tracing the food. Are we tracing it by a best by date? Are we tracing it by a production code? Are we tracing it by a lot code? How are we tracing it, and what is that TLC number? Then FDA gave us very specific requirements in terms of reporting to them. So we have to report any KDEs that they need for a foodborne illness investigation within 24 hours, and we have to provide it to them within a sortable spreadsheet. This is not new. This is repeat information from last year. So if you were here last year, you saw this exact same slide. This is standardizing the way that the FDA receives the data. They don't want screenshots, and trust me, we've been guilty of sending screenshots to FDA. They don't want that. They want it in a sortable spreadsheet so that they can manipulate the data, because they're bringing in data. If it's a multi-state outbreak that's associated with many different food service establishments, they're bringing in data from all different points, and they want to be able to consolidate that data and sort it to run through their illness models. The last part of the rule that has changed was that the compliance date was originally set for January 20th, 2026. So there's a holdup there. Industry did propose to FDA, we need more time. And FDA listened, so they did extend the rule, or they have put a proposal out to extend the rule by 30 months. So this was submitted in March of this year. That extension, if approved, it's held up now due to the shutdown. So the proposal has not been officially approved, but there is a high level of expectation that it will be approved. So we anticipate getting an extension to July 20th, 2028. They're not changing any components of the rule. So the 8 KDEs that they've put out there staying the same. The 24-hour reporting time, the sortable spreadsheet is staying the same. So none of the components of the rule will change, but the timing for it will. And there's folks at FDA who say you need to just stay on top of it. And we at PFG have made that decision too. So even though we're aware of the potential extension, we know that we're going to have extra time. We're still working on this diligently. We're still holding meetings multiple times a week. We meet 3 times a week on traceability, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. So we're meeting, all throughout the week. This is taking up a lot of my time, and we've got a full team at corporate that is managing our compliance program. So just a little bit about traceability at PFG. We're tracing product every single week. We're doing trace forward activities, which you would know as product recalls, 2 times a week. We do participate in trace back activities, but at a much lesser extent. So we have those about 4 times a year. The trace back activities are the most crucial for us because we know that there has been a foodborne illness outbreak at a customer, and we need to do everything that we can to help that customer, help the regulatory agents who are investigating at their establishment. It's a high time of stress. They usually come to us with a list of products. We need to know where the tomatoes, the peppers, the lettuce, the onions came from for this time period. It might be a 2-month time period. So it's usually a lot of data that we're pulling together. We do a good job of getting that data for customers when they need it and for the investigators. Sometimes we're dealing with the customers, sometimes we're dealing with the investigators. Either way, we work behind the scenes after hours to get the data. It's really tough right now. to do that because it is manual. We have a lot of warehouse management systems and ERP systems that we have to pull data from to consolidate it. So it is a lot of work, but we're hoping that our focus in this project is going to make us better at it. We always participate in recalls and we always participate in the traceback, so we never say no. We talked to FDA a few years ago and they said sometimes people don't want to participate with us, and I'm like, I don't know who those people are because it's not PFG, because we will always participate. Here's some statistics from a PFG perspective. We track all of our activities. So this is a 5-year chart of recalls from 2019 to the end of last year. We'll update this after the end of 2025. But this shows you how the types of recalls breaks out. For us, over the past 5 years, you'll notice the red on top. Those are your Class 1 recalls, the ones where we know that there is a food safety implication involved with it. So those are the higher occurrences. And then you see the other types of recalls, how they break out. We do track this through our system. It's the instant recall system. The next slide is pretty interesting. This is a 1-year set of data that shows how recall projects are launched throughout the week. So that first column on the far left is Sunday. The far right is Saturday. When are most recalls launched? And you guys knew this, right? Because it just seems like that's the way it always is. We have data that supports that. I have a very specific reason why I think this happens, and if you want to know that reason, I'll talk to you after the presentation about it. It's a speculation on my point, but I think it's pretty sound. This also breaks down the launch of projects by the time of day. So you see that the majority of recalls will be launched between that noon and 6 p.m. time frame. So if you think about that on a daily perspective, right, people get to the office, they're getting their communications, things have to be set up, and then launch happens between noon and 6 in the afternoon. Not a great time for restaurant operators, right? You're getting ready for the weekend, and suddenly it's 2 o'clock on Friday, and you're getting the notice, you got to pull your romaine lettuce. That never makes a restaurant operator happy. We understand that. But just interesting statistics that we do track from all the events that we manage. So I did announce last year that PFG has partnered with Trustwell. That is the company that owns the Food Logic system. Do any of you use Food Logic at your companies now? So they're a really good third-party provider of data collection. So we will be using Trustwell and the Food Logic platform to receive data from our suppliers and to transmit the data to you all at your request. On this timeline that we enacted with Trustwell, we're in the prepare stage. So we're in that third blue arrow in the middle. So we're preparing for our soft launch, and that's going to start happening next year. Excuse me. So we do feel like Trustwell is a leader in this field, and we will improve our timing and our ease to get data for the regulators. Here's our path for compliance. So we've done a lot of collaborating with other agencies. We've collaborated with the International Food Distributors Association. There are guidance documents out there for manufacturers, for distributors, and for food service operators on the IFTA website. I know the National Restaurant Association has put out good guidance also. So if you guys are members of NRA, you can get those documents from NRA. And the FDA has put out some really good guidance documents. The main thing from a food service perspective is you guys have to have a traceability plan in place. It's a really simple plan. You just need to know what are your food traceability list items, what foods do you bring in that are on the FTL. You need to know who the suppliers are, how you're going to get the data from them, and how you're going to manage that data to present to an investigation if one is launched at your location. So the collaboration is key. So if you need help, reach out to PFG. We will help guide you because we want you to be prepared for this. We're willing to help. We've done a lot of evaluation of our internal programs. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears go into that because at that point you're trying to decide, okay, where are we good, where are we good or not so good? So after our evaluation, we've initiated an enterprise-wide project plan with the traceability task force at corporate. And then we've partnered with folks like Trustwell, and we know we will have to partner with other third-party key data element exchange partners. So we're lining up all of those partnerships that we will need to have going forward. We're going to do some proof of concepts. That's going to start after the first of the year. We're really focusing on our supplier engagement for now and onboarding those suppliers. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. I'll show you some of the onboarding details that we're giving to suppliers. And then we'll start pilot testing, hopefully with customers at the end of 2026. So we've got to start receiving the data before we can transmit the data. So we're at the point where we're lining up our suppliers to have them transmit their KDEs to us through Trustwell. So in terms of supplier onboarding, we started in August of this year focusing on who are the suppliers that provide us foods on the food traceability list, and we set up a series of webinars for those suppliers. We started in August. We've been doing them once a month. Our next one is actually next Tuesday. So we have been sending out invites to the almost 1,300 suppliers that we feel like provide us with foods on the food traceability list for them to attend one of our seminars that will conclude at the end of the year. So our last one will be in December. It's an hour webinar. We go through the Trustwell the FoodLogic platform in Trustwell, and we give to them the details of what we want in terms of traceability. So our preferred methods of receiving the key data elements, we really love GS 128 barcodes. Barcodes make it so much easier, and I've got a little bit more detail about what we tell the manufacturers about the barcodes that we want. We also can receive KDEs through advanced ship notices or ASNs. That's where they send us the data in advance. We still want the barcode. The barcode makes it easier for our warehouse teams at receiving, where we can scan and uptake the data. Barcodes make it easier. So barcodes are not mandated by FDA for this rule, but we know barcodes make it easier, so we're really pushing for that. The third means is the serialized shipment container codes, or SSCCs. That's a different kind of barcode. So those barcodes usually are from folks who are consolidating different types of food on a pallet. So you can scan one barcode, and there's multiple barcodes down the side, and all of that, the one barcode has the information from the multiple barcodes. So if you need to scan the individual barcodes or just the one single barcode, it still represents all of the different products on those single pallets. So after each webinar, we give the supplier 30 days to go onto the FoodLogic system to set up their page, to link with us, and to get ready to share data with us. And we have a dedicated email that we've set up for the suppliers that they can reach out to us. We send them this grid that shows all of the information that we want, that we will be receiving through FoodLogic: the G10, the supplier item number, the product description, the GLN, which is the global location number, their physical address, the brand of the product, and the pack size. We do talk to the suppliers about barcodes. All barcodes are not created equal. And just because there is a barcode on a product doesn't mean that all of the data has been programmed into that barcode. So we have to be very specific. If you are using a 128 barcode for us, these are the application identifiers, or AIs, that you have to put into the barcode. And they're all indicated by a bold 2-digit set of numbers or 4-digit sets. And I'll show you that on the next slide. If you see that 01 indicator in a barcode, that tells you what the G10 is. That's the global trade number for the item. 17 tells you what the expiration date is. 3202 tells you what the catch weight is. And then number 10 tells you what the batch or lot code is for the product. If the suppliers do not program this into the barcode, then it's a dead barcode. It's just an empty barcode. So we're spending time telling the suppliers what we need for them to program into their barcodes. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is just 4. This is not 8, but we got to start somewhere. We realize that we're probably not going to be getting all 8 KDEs from every single supplier, and there's no indication from FDA that they're going to judge us based on that. The main one is that lot code, which is number 10. You see, so we want the suppliers to give us their lot codes through the barcodes. Here's a chart of each that gives specific definitions for each of the application identifiers, and we will end up asking for multiples of those. We do have some requirements in terms of barcodes and how they're placed on product. We prefer for them to be on 2 sides, adjacent corners, so that our selectors can see a barcode from one of two different angles. And legibility of the barcode is key. If we can't scan a barcode, then we can't get data from it, right? So we do give some examples of how we prefer barcodes to be presented on the packaging. We don't like for it to be printed directly onto the corrugate. That corrugate absorbs moisture, ink bleeds, it becomes a mess, right? So we really want them to use a distinct white label to print the barcodes on the product, to put directly onto the cases. And again, we want that label to cover 2 corners, 2 sides of the product, so our guys have 2 opportunities to scan the barcode. All of this is presented to the suppliers in those webinars that I was talking to you about. So just in the last couple of minutes, I want to talk about the customer piece, because we will work with Trustwell to develop 3 different means for you guys to get the KDEs from PFG once we get them from the suppliers. So we will bring the data in from the suppliers. We will manage it through the FoodLogic system. We can set it up for you to receive it on a continuous feed. If you're using a third-party key data element exchange partner and you want us to just transmit that data directly into your system, we will be able to do that. It will just be continuous. You will always have the data. We will set up a portal that if you as a customer are involved in an investigation and you want to get the data yourself, you don't want PFG involved, you can go into the portal, and I've got a slide on that next. And then on an as-need basis, if you want us to provide the data to you, which is how we currently do it, then you just email your salesperson, say, hey, I've got this investigation going on. The salespeople will get in touch with us at corporate, and then we would take it from there to get you that information. We always turn that around in 24 hours. Even with our current systems now, we turn it around in 24 hours. It's not fun. It's a lot of behind the scenes work, but that's what we do. This is from Trustwell, so this is what their portal will look like once we have it up and running. This is what you would log into. You would key in the item numbers, you would key in the date ranges that you're needed to search for, and then the Trustwell system will pull that data and will generate a sortable spreadsheet for you to give to the investigator that's at your establishment. We hope that we can start rolling this out later in 2026. That's our goal. We want to get supplier data incoming the first half of 2026 and then start testing it with customers at the end of 2026. So next year, when we're in Dallas, hopefully I'll have somebody with Trustwell who will actually do a live demo for you next year in Dallas. I know I promised that last year in Nashville. I did. I promised it. I hold myself accountable. But we're not quite there yet, which is why we need the extension, which is why we're happy the FDA has given that to us. So Wednesday morning, traceability, entertainment, that is it. I'm done. And I will take questions if there's any in the room. I won't take applause, so don't applaud. Hold your applause. I don't need that. Just questions if there's any, and if there's none, it's okay. We appreciate you coming to our speaker session this morning, and we appreciate you staying for the other sessions too. They're going to be great. So any questions? Again, this is a lot to digest. We do have 30 more months to get it done. We are not slowing down. So just trust that we're working on it as diligently as we can. All right, we'll take a 15-minute break and then come back for the next session. All right.